consistent, predictable, and until recently without conditionality. A failing Pakistan would probably be driven into an even closer relationship with China, which already has a foothold in the Arabian Sea through its construction of the port of Godar in south of Pakistan's Balochistan province, and has recently been given access into Gilgit-Baltistan region for its military. For China, Pakistan is a low-cost secondary deterrent to India, and for Pakistan, China is a high-value guarantor of security against India. It has in fact without doubt been an all-weather relationship in contrast to the US relationship, which has been a fair weather one. Now, a long-time ally of Pakistan and covert facilitator in our view of Pakistan's nuclear capability, China seems to have recently adopted a more nuanced policy towards Pakistan that is probably less generous with unconditional aid and more quick to apply pressure. Perhaps the most significant strategic change in the relationship is China's increasing concern about the Uyghur protests and Islamic radicalization in Xinjiang, which now colors China's view of Pakistan exported militancy. China is concerned especially with the linkages between the extremist Uyghur ETIM group and Pakistani groups. One indirect result of China's new concerns is the convergence between China and the USA in countering terrorism and promoting stability in Afghanistan and Pakistan, as reflected in the approaches of the political leaderships both in the United States of America and China. Given the increasing ties with India, the continuing close relations with Pakistan, and the expanding investment in and political links with Afghanistan, China is likely to emerge in the coming decade with significant leverage over the key countries in South Asia. As China grows more comfortable in discharging its duties as a global power, it could become a key player in a regional architecture to keep the peace in Afghanistan. By coaxing its Pakistan ally into regional stabilizing arrangements while developing its own bilateral ties with India, it is possible that China could exert a positive effect on Islamabad's regional relationships. Given the perceived dangers posed by the export of extremism into China's own provinces from Pakistan, it is safe to assume that China would want stability in the Afghanistan-Pakistan area. And at the same time, I think China is uncomfortable with the United States of America in what it perceives as its backyard. The fourth strategic issue is Afghanistan. The political and military leadership in Pakistan has an exaggerated view, I think, of the extent and depth of Indian involvement in Afghanistan. This, of course, reflects Pakistani's suspicion of India's long-term motivation, as it were, in providing aid to Afghanistan, and the Pakistani military's obsession with having strategic depth provided by its Western neighbor. Despite last year's strategic partnership agreement with Kabul, there is no consensus in New Delhi on the nature of the Indian military's engagement with Afghanistan. While a section of the Indian military may well wish to have its boots on the Afghan soil, there is significant opposition to such a move in the Indian Parliament and within the Indian military itself. Parliament is therefore, I think, unlikely to authorize dispatch of Indian troops to Afghanistan, but it would agree on training Afghan troops in India's several military training centers. India would obviously like to have a friendly regime in Afghanistan. In principle, I think India, like Pakistan, would also want an Afghan-led and Afghan-owned reconciliation process. While sections of the security establishment in India are apprehensive about the Taliban coming back into the political reckoning in Afghanistan, the real fear is not that it would end in Karzai losing his hold, but the belief that the Taliban would be more amenable to Islamabad and act against India's investments. The Indian establishment sees Afghanistan as a gateway to Central Asia for economic and political reasons. It would help India reach out to the Afghan and Central Asian markets and India would also benefit from the gas reserves in the region. But a serious problem in achieving that objective is India's dilemma with Pakistan. And to that extent, I think India needs Pakistan to be its gateway to Afghanistan, which in turn can be its gateway to Central Asia, the point made this morning again. Now, there are many of us in India who probably do not fully understand the pains of Pakistan's engagement with Afghanistan. From refugees and to suicide bombers, most of Pakistan's problems today stem from Islamabad's attempts to influence events in Afghanistan. What is seen and heard here is the reported linkage between sections of the military and the ISI with the Quetta, Shura and the Haqqani network. What is not probably fully perceived and adequately appreciated is the violence and bloodshed that it has caused inside Pakistan. To that extent, I think, given the painful investments both the countries, India and Pakistan, have made in Afghanistan, the real question should not be what India and Pakistan want in Afghanistan, but whether India and Pakistan can work together for stability in Afghanistan, particularly with the 2014 deadline fast approaching. The last issue I wish to touch very briefly on is the nuclear dimension.